All right, Ahmad, so I got a quick question for you to start off this episode, right? So, of this five, right, I need you to do me a favor. Of this five, can you name the player, all right, that you feel is going to leap into a different tier for this upcoming season? All right, I'm going to give you the five names. Luka, Trey, Book, JT, and Spider.
Different tier. No, when you say different tier, I feel like you mean take the next step. When we talk about, because to be honest, none of those guys you mentioned are top five players in the game. I still think it's the OGs in the game. When you think of Kawhi, LeBron, Stephen Curry, Giannis, James Harden, those guys. So next step, wouldn't that be like the next step?
Right. That's what I'm saying. So put it like this: is there anything that any of those five gentlemen can do that would put this season them in that category? Of the players you just mentioned.
The only thing that any one of those five can do, and to be honest, there's only three of them that I really feel that, and that's Luka, that's Jason Tatum, and that's Trey Young. I think those guys are ahead of a little bit of everybody else, and Devin Booker is maybe Devin Booker, but I really feel that they would have to win an MVP. That probably don't be the only way you can this season to put them like in that group or have to knock somebody out that group if they win an MVP. If Luka wins the MVP, it's going to be hard to say he's not a top five player. Jason Tatum wins the MVP, it's going to be hard to say he's not a top five player. Even Trey Young, because to me, all those guys are borderline top 10 players in the game right now. So it's just like on any given night, they can be a top 10 player in the game. So, and it's crazy to think about because when we talk about Luka, we talk about Jason Tatum, we talk about Trey Young. These guys are special, phenomenal. That just shows you how talented the NBA is. So,
right, and that's exactly why I asked too, because I mean they're all young, but they still have potential. Right, I don't think any of them have reached their ceiling.
No.
But that's tough though that you wouldn't throw Book in there, because I would say this though with Book, in terms of the question of is there anything else that they could do to put themselves in that category this year? What if Book goes back to the finals?
I mean, yeah,
right. I'm not saying they will. That's not my necessary prediction right now. But if Book gets back-to-back finals, that would mean he would probably have had to beat an even better or more talented Lakers team. And so I mean, and I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Utah? Yeah, of course. That's what I said. Anytime, I mean, look, anytime we talk about like an upcoming season, I mean, you have to mention the word if. But I mean, same thing. I mean, I know Spider hasn't made the finals, but I don't know. To me, like if Book makes back-to-back finals, that's especially in the Western Conference where you have LeBron in it. And the MVP of the league. I know Jamal's gonna be injured, but still, that's just, I don't know. It was just something to think about, because we mentioned previously on other episodes how that group of five, right? It's really going to be telling, who's going to really, I guess, run the league over the next few years. And another name too I didn't mention was Zion. Right, I know the Pelicans haven't had right. But I'm saying, like, I know the Pelicans haven't really had the greatest playoff success, but I mean Zion, he's still part of the future. He's still part of the future.
Yeah, he's definitely he's a force. Him and John Morant as well. You can even throw in LaMelo Ball. It's going to be special. But I feel like when you talk about Luka, you talk about Trey, when you talk about Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, it's crazy because like we kind of talked about this last episode. Like, it's so much talent in the NBA and the older guys that's been in the league so long. It used to be a time where we seen the older guys starting to kind of get out the league during this time, like 34, 35, 36. They out the league, they're retiring. Then this fresh new crop is like, really taking on that leap. But it's just like, it's hard for these new guys because when you look at it, Kevin Durant, he's like 33, 34. LeBron James going to be 37. Stephen Curry, 33, 34. Like James Harden, 33. It's just like none of those guys that we mentioned are better than any of those guys. And it's crazy how good, that's what I'm saying. It's crazy how good Luka is, Trey is, Jason Tatum, that we can even say that like, they not better than this upper echelon when we talk about talented players. So it's definitely going to be interesting.
Oh yeah, and it's dope too because like you mentioned too, there's no fall off right with the older player. It's not like it's so weird though with the younger guys too because you want to keep saying like, all right, they're the future because they're young, but I mean they're here. You know what I'm saying? Like
Booker been in the league 7 years, so it's just like Jason Tatum's on his 5th year. Booker is not he's a young player because like he's still under 25, but at the same time, Devin Booker is a a vet. He's a young vet in this league. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of these guys are coming in early, and then they'll be 20 coming in when they're 18, 23 years old, 24 years old. They've been in the league 6-7 years. You know, so
but
it's just kind of
that's why it's so important to like give players time. You know what I'm saying? And I know Book came in the league, you know, he played well, but for the most part, it's like we got to remember that even though if a player has been in the league for 3 years or whatever, if they came in after their freshman year of college, you know what I'm saying? Think about where you were as a senior in school. You know what I mean? So just mentally, not even just physically, but mentally, it's like, all right, let's take a deep breath. Let's see how, you know, they continue to develop as players and as, you know, men in the league. You know what I'm saying? It's that takes time. So I don't know. It's just all five, and I guess, you know, you want to throw Zion in there too. I'm gonna throw Zion in there. And even Ja too. Even Ja. I mean, I personally hate the whole, you know, the league is in good hands shit like that. You know, that phrase gets used often, but it really is. You know, I don't think this is a time where like, oh damn, you know, LeBron's about to retire. What is the league about to do now?
Yeah,
we're gonna be all right. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna be all right.
It's definitely gonna be fine. It's crazy because a big conversation that's been going on today is just like nobody voted LeBron James as the best player in the world. So it's just like I gotta ask you, do you feel, because it's two sides of the fence. You got some people feeling like LeBron's trying to create an underdog story. Then you got some people, it's just like he has every right to have bulletin board material. It's just like if he feels disrespected, it's kind of like he has every right to feel the way that he feels. So I'm asking you, what kind of side do you kind of lean on?
You know what? One I'm gonna say I do like the bulletin board material. That's nice. One thing I'm gonna say too, Bron is a very smart and intelligent man. Now I'm not saying he's doing this on purpose. I'm not saying he's trying to create a forced narrative so that way when he wins a championship and looks like he proved the doubters wrong, at the end of the day, it's still LeBron James. So no one is gonna be like, you know what? Okay. Oh yeah, it was an upset, right? Like LeBron isn't upsetting anyone, and especially, you know, in the NBA Finals. But I will say though too, I mean, we talked about this before about the whole Giannis and KD and LeBron. To have 0 votes is a little wild. Zero is a little crazy. You know, I felt strongly about, you know, Giannis should be at the table, but I probably feel even stronger about the fact that ain't nobody say that LeBron isn't the best player. But I mean, I think it just goes to show kind of, you know, how good the other two guys are as opposed to saying that LeBron is bad. In a way, just because, like, now if this was a poll where we were saying like, all right, you know, who's your MVP candidate, you know, and even that would be low-key disrespectful. But I mean, like I said, to me, it's just more of people acknowledging that Giannis and KD are here and that the gap no longer is as crazy or as big as it once was. I'm just saying, because the real look. Well, first of all, the real answer is for the first time ever, or at least in a very long time, there is now reason to believe that LeBron may or may not be the best player in the world. That's a fact. That is a fact. It is not, like, if you think LeBron is the best player, all right, cool. That's fine. Is not a clear-cut thing. I'll tell you that.
Fine. But it's funny because, like, people get mad. He said, you know, Wash King. All these stuff that LeBron reacts to when they talked about him. We saw when Russell Westbrook got traded to Los Angeles Lakers, they said him and LeBron's not going to work. Before, when LeBron James got hurt in his first season with Los Angeles Lakers, the Wash King. All these narratives and all these things were created by other people. So you can't get mad when LeBron James reacts to certain things. And we know how talented LeBron is. He knows how talented he is. But when you're an all-time athlete, one of the greatest that's ever played in the game, they're a little psycho. They're wired differently. So these guys need things to kind of like get them going and get them like, yo, I got to go out and show like, yo, I'm still that guy. I got to go out and prove everybody wrong. They just need things to do that, especially when you've been doing it for so long. Look at Michael Jordan. You've seen The Last Dance. It would take anything, any little tiny thing to get Michael Jordan to go crazy or go nuts. Same thing with his LeBron, but it's just like the only problem is people get mad when LeBron James do it.
Yeah, but it's so weird to me because like folks are saying that they feel that, you know, LeBron isn't the best player in the league, right? And we're talking about Giannis and Kevin Durant. We're not talking about mids, right? But no one is saying that LeBron is washed. Like, I haven't seen like any reports saying, yo, LeBron stinks or LeBron's a bum. Or LeBron, I haven't even heard of LeBron has lost it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe this is just more so we're seeing, you know, or Giannis, we knew what KD was like, but we're seeing those guys elevate their game as opposed to, all right, LeBron has lost a step. Like, eventually we were going to hit a point, y'all, where his dominance was, isn't the same. Like, y'all had to have known it was coming.
But it's not even necessarily his dominance has not been the same. It's just like, I would say Father Time is starting to catch LeBron, not in his game, but more so of how he recovers for these injuries. He's had a lot of more injuries with the Lakers that he's ever had in his career. That's because he's getting older and it's taking him a longer time to recover. But when he's healthy, before the high ankle sprain, you know who they were talking about in the MVP race? It was LeBron James. You know, the season prior to when, you know, they went on that run with and then the COVID hit and all that stuff, LeBron James was the best player in the world. And it's just like, that's what I'm saying. So it's just kind of like, yes, it's a toss-up, but just to act like, yo, LeBron's not like this dude or this guy. He can't be mad at people saying that he's not the best player in the world, because when he's healthy, it still looks like LeBron. So it's just like, I can't get mad at him. So, and then to me, we had this conversation a long time ago. It's only two guys, and it's been two guys. And that's been Kevin Durant, and that's been LeBron James. And let me tell you something. It's still Kevin Durant. It's still Kevin Durant, and it's still LeBron James. Everybody else, Giannis, Stephen Curry, James Harden, even Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, they're all interchangeable. Like, I think people get too caught up with championships. Giannis won a championship, and then they want to throw him in that best player in the world category. That's fine. I'll point out the context and the situation of how he won that championship. Some people are going to say it doesn't really matter, but I'm just saying, at the end of the day, it's just kind of like people love change. They did the same thing with Kawhi Leonard in 2019 when he won and he beat the Golden State Warriors. He was the best player in the world. So it's, you know how it is.
I'm not going to repeat the debate, y'all, because we already went back and forth on the how we value championships. But I will say, though, to your LeBron point, is like how soon people forget, right?
Yeah,
and I'm agreeing with you. All of a sudden, a guy gets one injury, and then it's like, well, you know, is he really like that?
Or one championship.
All right.
That's the truth. You throw him in there after one championship.
You're right. I definitely did, and because I value championships. That's the ultimate measure when it comes to.
It is. So, but let me ask you a question. So if Luka Doncic or Jason Tatum goes out and win a championship this year, are we gonna sit up and say that they are the best player in the world? Because if you look at talent and skill for skill, they're just as good as any of those guys. If that's what we're doing.
I'm so glad you asked that, and I've been waiting for multiple episodes for you to ask me that question. All right, here's how I feel about that statement. Right, so before last season, right, let's say you thought LeBron James was a 99, right? What do you think Giannis was? Let's say he was a 95. It wasn't anything lower than that. All right, if he's a 95, right, and then after this past season, Giannis elevated his game to, let's say, a 97, and LeBron, didn't have the greatest postseason in the world, so let's say he lowered it to 97. So my point in saying that is, prior to this season, the gap wasn't that large. So the fact that Giannis won this chip and LeBron may not have played his best, that's what I'm saying. So, but the gap between LeBron and Tatum, the gap between LeBron and Luka is that large, where I won't say if either of those guys won a chip or MVP this season, then I'm not going to put them in that category. But the gap wasn't that far.
But the gap, I don't believe the gap is that far between those guys. We just talked about it. It's just kind of like, I know that the older guys are better than these guys, but to be honest, I can't legitimately say, even after Giannis won his championship, this was the first time I thought after Giannis won his championship, he was a top 5 player. People have been saying he was the best player in the world for several years now, saying he was a top 5 player. Me personally, this is the first time I think he's a top 5 player after he won his championship. That's not to take anything away from Giannis, but I'm just saying, it's just kind of like, if Luka Doncic wins or if Jason Tatum wins a championship, I guess it's going to be people like me that's going to probably say, like, yo, Theus, I think that Jason Tatum is, you can say he's better than Giannis. He's better than Luka. That's how the argument goes. It seems like it's going.
All right, and to be very clear, it's not just the championship. For me, at least, I ain't speak for nobody else, but for me, it's not just the championship. But it's like when you're that close to a guy in terms of tiers and ranking, and then you win a championship, that's what makes it like, all right, I'm going to push him a little bit higher, closer to LeBron. Jason Tatum, again, love JT, and I'm not saying that he won't, be, a top player, all that. But because the ranking is so far ahead, yes, Jason will be closer to LeBron if he wins the chip, but that championship alone won't be enough for me to say, you know what, they're in the same breath. But Giannis, he wasn't that far. So winning the biggest thing you can win in terms of the NBA?
It's crazy because nobody said this about Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis had an injury-riddled season. Only me. I was saying like, yo, Anthony Davis may be prove. I said before the season started. I said Anthony Davis may prove this year that he's the best player in this world. This was after he won his championship because he was the most dominant player in the playoffs that he won in the bubble.
I mean, that's just a LeBron effect, and that part sucks for AD. I mean, anytime you play with LeBron James, I'm serious. I mean, that's just natural. Anytime you play with LeBron James, it's going to be tough for people to just say like, yo, you're the best player in the world. All right. Anyways, man, speaking of LeBron James, one of the greatest Lakers ever, you feel me, brought LA another chip. Being a Laker fan all my life, man, I've been thinking, about how crazy some of the games were when I was younger, right? The battles that they had, Kobe and Shaq. And one of those teams that they used to go back and forth with were the Sacramento Kings. All right. So this next segment, we're going to be talking about the Sacramento Kings and the present roster that they have. Obviously, shout out to the Summer League champs. So let's get right into it. What's up, y'all? It's Theus McBee. Make sure you go follow No Pump Fakes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, y'all. We got Jason Jones. He covers the Sacramento Kings for The Athletic. What's going on, man? Appreciate you for pulling up to the show. What's up?
Not much, going to try to enjoy this, 6-week off season.
Yeah, I hear you. But you know what? I feel like another thing that you can enjoy, man, Sacramento Kings, Summer League champs.
Yeah.
So could you, talk to us about kind of what that means and, for the whole organization to be Summer League champs of 2021?
The second time I've seen this happen, it happened in 2014. And last time that happened, they fired the head coach like 5 months later. So
damn. All right. Well, shit happens. Shit happens. Hopefully that doesn't happen this year. But
in July, Michael Malone's in Vegas. Like, okay, yeah, we won Summer League. Then before Christmas, he has no job. So I mean, I think it's good for them just in the sense that you got to see what Davion Mitchell can do. You get to see him be a leader, and you can say, okay, we got one guy we know who can play defense, maybe even two. So let's, to me, that's all good for them just because, I mean, I have never seen a defense as bad as theirs was last season.
It's a guy that won the championship MVP on your roster, Sacramento Kings. His name is Louis King. He's very impressive to me. How do you feel that his game is going to kind of translate maybe to the NBA if he gets like a full guaranteed contract? Right now, he's on a 2-way contract with the Sacramento Kings.
I think even on a 2-way, he can help the Kings because right, if you look at the way their roster is right now, they're really short on wing players. You got Harrison Barnes, you got Mo Harkless, and then after that, you got nobody with really any experience. Robert Woodard was a second-round pick last year, but he's still got some work to do to kind of figure out exactly where he fits in the NBA. They'll probably use Terrence Davis as a wing, guard and threes. He's got a long wingspan, but Terrence is about 6'4". And what the Kings really need are more guys. They want to play small. And I say this a lot. Playing small doesn't just mean using short players. It means the style of play. And what hurt them a lot last year was they were small, but they were just too small. And so you need some guys 6'6", 6'7", who can, make an outside shot like Louis King can do. He showed he can play some defense. That was kind of one of the knocks on him when the Kings got him, was that he was a guy who didn't defend. And he showed he can do that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you see, even on a 2-way, the Kings work him in because, guys are going to get hurt eventually. Things will happen. And you're going to need another body like his. And last year, one of their 2-way players, Chimezie Metu, ended up on a standard deal. And I think if Louis King can continue to develop, people forget he was a high school All-American. He's a real talented guy. He's a guy who I would not be shocked to see in March, post-trade deadline on a standard deal, maybe contributing to them in the rotation.
Yeah. And so talk to me, too, about Darian Fox. Like, what would you say the next step is for him this season?
Consistency. I mean, when he's great, he's great. I mean, he had, 2 Player of the Week awards where he was average, he had he's averaging like 30. But even he would tell you when he's not at that level, he's got to get to a point to where, okay, I may not be getting 30 and 10, but maybe I'm getting you 22 and 8. He can't let his drop off be so far off to where it hurts the team because they rely so much on him. and he has to be the guy that keeps them going. And they can't have him being, one night he's at 35, 40, then 2 nights later, he's down at 20. Part of that is also part of the roster. You got to get him some more help. But he would even tell he's got to be more consistent, especially on the defensive end. When they drafted him back in 2017, they saw a guy who they thought could be a two-way Drew Holiday type, where he can get you 20, 25, but it'll also lock down your point guard. And now that they've seen enough of him being that lockdown player, they saw him be at Kentucky. But I also think at Kentucky, Coach Cal will, get you if you don't play that way. It's a little different in the NBA. I remember when early in De'Aaron's career, he talked about picking his spots on defense, and one of the vets said, "You're like 19, you can't pick your spots." Hey. And I think sometimes he still kind of picks his spots on defense. I think that getting him more help, like a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, who can run the offense, and Davion can help him. And then from there, you should be able to see him have that intensity on defense for longer stretches.
And so with the addition of Davion, how do you think their playing styles are going to complement each other?
One way it'll help is that now, and talk about defense, De'Aaron doesn't have to always take the other team's point guard. And De'Aaron has the length to guard twos and some threes. So now you can, you can slide Davion there and let him harass someone. And then you can, you also become more switchable on defense. One of the problems they've had is that in a lot of their lineups, you had usually at least 2 guys who you could pick on. And you can hide one guy. Hiding 2 or 3 guys is almost impossible, which is why you got what you saw from them defensively last year. You can't hide everybody. People will say, go to a zone. I'm like, if you're a bad man defender, I tell them, if you're bad as a man-to-man defender, you're a bad zone defender. You can't. In today's NBA, you can't hide people in the corner of a zone. I mean, I covered this team with Jimmer Fredette. They tried to hide him in a zone. You can't hide people. So I think they'll be able to do that a lot. They'll be more switchable. It'll preserve everyone. And they want to use a lot of 3-guard lineups anyway. And like I said, as they are now, you could see De'Aaron, Davion, Tyrese Halliburton. You could see, Davion, Buddy Hield, Tyrese Halliburton. You can do some different things now. And people also remember the Kings general manager, Monty McNair, came from Houston, where, we saw them essentially use almost James Harden as a 4. So, this is going to be something I think we could hypothetically see Richaun Holmes or Harrison Barnes at the 5 with 4 guards with them. I think it's going to get real wacky in Sacramento.
I think it's going to get wacky, but I don't know if it's going to be for the right reasons. But
I didn't say it was going to be for the right reasons. I know I feel for the staff because I've seen them try things, and I'll tell people, they're like, well, what? They're trying stuff because they don't have anything else to try.
They have something they can try. I'm about to ask you this question. Why do you feel that Luke Walton is still the head coach of the Sacramento Kings?
A couple of reasons. One, he still has the locker room. No matter what went through it, those guys are still with him. I mean, Buddy gets mad when he's not playing, but in terms of, because in the league, once you lose the locker room, you lose everything.
Yeah.
And he hasn't lost that team. De'Aaron is firmly behind him. Richaun Holmes has had his best years of his career with Luke. And those guys have really bought into him. Secondly, guaranteed money on the table. This is not a team that can keep. I mean, at one point, the Kings were paying 3 coaches because they kept firing people. We were coming out, we were in a pandemic. The teams lost money. You just can't throw away a guaranteed deal. And if I remember correctly, Luke's deal doesn't have a stretch provision. If you fire Luke, you got to pay him the whole contract. You can't fire him and just pay him over the next 5-6 years. And I think those are 2 main reasons. And I think if you also look at last year's team, until the trade deadline, he actually had a worse team than he had the year before in terms of just the roster. And to me, it's hard to kill the coach when you didn't give him any help. I mean, their idea of helping him on the perimeter was signing a guy like Glenn Robinson III, who they ended up cutting. They didn't get him any, you lost one of your best defenders in Kent Bazemore. You never replaced him. You lose a guy like Bogdan Bogdanovic. Tyrese Halliburton fills in that spot, but he's still a rookie. And I just didn't think overall the roster was that good last year. I mean, I might be in the minority. I know people will say, well, De'Aaron's good. He's, Buddy is a good player. But I think overall it wasn't a great roster. They had a lot of guys who played a lot. They, who probably shouldn't be playing major minutes. If they're on a good team, you could argue at least 3 of their starters aren't starters on good teams. And they had to play those guys 35 minutes.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. Will this be the year the Sacramento Kings make the playoffs?
Ooh, this will be the year I think they can get to the top 10, and then anything can happen.
Right.
Yeah, I think they can get to the top 10. I mean, this is a team that had 2 9-game losing streaks and lost 9 of 11 at one point, and then going into the last week of the season, still had a chance of getting into the play-in. So if you just tweak a little, to stop somebody, like my joke was, just pinch somebody in the lane. Don't let them go get a layup every time. You've got a chance to crack that top 10. If they get in the top 10, anything can happen. I think Memphis proved that last year.
Yeah.
Get in the top 10, anything can happen. So I've been saying they can be a top 10 team, which means they'll probably prove me wrong because that's the way things go. But I'm not going to say they're going to break the streak. But I think they can get to the top 10. If they don't get to the top 10, they have an ownership group or owner who's been notoriously impatient. He did fire a GM after giving him an extension.
Jeez.
Jeez. So I mean, he gives Vlade Divac an extension in April of 2019, fired him in like August of 2020. So I mean, anything can happen, but I do think the top 10 is reasonable. I think that requires De'Aaron to be at an all-star level consistently. That requires Tyrese to take a leap, and which I think he will. I mean, Tyrese is a worker. He's smart. He understands the game. They've got some good pieces in terms of that they can build around. I just wonder if those pieces can get good enough fast enough, just because they've been rebuilding for 15 years. I mean, and for a team that's been this bad this long, you would think they would have a lot more young talent on the roster, and they don't because they've botched the draft almost annually. It's been what can we do wrong in the draft situation? I think the last couple of years they seem to be back on the right track, but I could just run off all their draft mistakes for an hour.
Yeah. Let's talk about, to me, one of the greatest teams. Well, I'm going to ask you this question. Do you feel that the 2002 Sacramento Kings team is probably the greatest team to never win a championship?
I got to think about that. I think that Sonics team that ran into the Bulls, I might put them. I mean, that team won like 67 games. Yeah. It was they won some obscene number of games. They ran into a team that won 72.
Yeah.
So I mean,
when you put it like that, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe that Kings team is up there though.
I don't think that Sonics team is better than that 2002 Kings team. Though.
Oh no, you had prime Gary Payton. And
I would throw the Suns kind of in there too, y'all.
Yeah, Sean Kemp was a monster. I mean, you look at some of the that team, that Suns team that lost to the Bulls. I mean, the common thread there is Mike in both cases.
It happens. I was gonna say the Jazz too. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
Mike.
It's just funny. A lot of people will say that the Bulls didn't beat anybody, but I'm like, they beat some good teams. So I think of those teams. I think that 2002 team might be the best team that didn't make the finals that I can think of. I mean, I've seen teams that have been upset, but I can't think of a team that. But I think even that year, most people would agree those were the 2 best teams in the league. And me being an LA guy covering the Kings, I've had this debate for years with Kings fans, and I've told them the Kings got screwed in Game 6. I don't think anyone disputes that. But you can't lose Game 1 and Game 7 at home of a 7-game series, especially when you're up 15 in Game 7 and then start missing every free throw. And I've talked to guys from that team. I know a lot of them, and they'll tell you, I think Doug Christie even said they weren't ready in Game 1 of that series. The Lakers were so afraid. The Lakers brought finals intensity to Game 1. And then you go to a Game 4, you got a chance to go up 3-1, you blow a 20-point lead. I mean, there was just so many things. I mean, the Lakers tried to give them that series.
Yeah.
And it just, I mean, like I said, even if you take game 6 and say they got screwed, but really that should have been a 5-game series. They should have won that 4-1. There shouldn't have been a game 6 or a game 7.
People don't talk about like the 2002 Sacramento Kings team because they didn't have like Chris Webber was a star, but he wasn't like this. Like when people think of superstars and stars in the league, they don't automatically just think about Chris Webber. You know what I'm saying? Like Chris Webber comes up, but it's just like he's not the first guy you think of. But Chris Webber was special. And they had Mike Bibby, a guy that was hitting clutch shots. And then they had Doug Christie, one of the elite perimeter defenders that they had a lot of guys that nobody talks about, but it was extremely, extremely good when you look at that 2002.
Vlade was a all-star caliber. That was a good team. I mean,
it was a good team.
You can't dispute that. You had, people forget too. Peja was injured during that series.
Yep.
That's the thing people forget about, in terms of the Sacramento point of view. And I actually talked to Webb about this. He said as much as that hurt, they really thought their year was 2003. They kind of figured they had been through. You forget they ran to the Lakers every year in the playoffs that during that stretch. First in 2000, they lose in the first round to them in 5 games. Next year they get swept in 2001. Go 7 with them in 2002. They felt like 2003 was their year, but Webb got hurt that season.
Yeah,
they really feel like they would have won the title in 2003, especially they watched the finals from New Jersey get back. They had mopped New Jersey. They weren't worried about New Jersey. But when Webb gets hurt, it changes everything for him. And I think we also talk about Webb getting recognition. You look at his numbers during that stretch, they were insane. He just played in an era with he did that with an era with KG, Tim Duncan. I mean, there was some monster bigs in the West at that point. Rasheed Wallace was in Portland. They had, I think Portland had almost they had the, Davis boys. They were physical, and Webb still put up numbers. So I think, like, even the fact that Webb's going to the Hall of Fame now, to me, it recognizes the fact that he did what he did in an era where it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Got Dirk playing too. So
talking about that era, do you think Sacramento can reach that point again? Whether it's, reaching the conference finals or hopefully, possibly getting a superstar or developing a superstar in the near future?
I think they got to draft, well, or they got to find a guy in a trade, or just hope that their hope is that De'Aaron becomes that superstar. He's the closest that they've had since DeMarcus. And even then, so much has to go right. You've got to draft well. You got to make good decisions. You got to hire the right coach. I mean, if you look at the last 15 years, every time I thought, well, maybe they're on the right track, they fired somebody. Or people forget, even when they traded DeMarcus, they were like a game and a half out of 8, and DeMarcus was playing like an MVP candidate, and they traded him. So it's like every time you feel like, well, maybe they're going to turn the corner, it's like, no, you're not. And even with the 2019, when they won 39 games, I call that the Mirage season, because they finished 9th in the West, but it wasn't like they were a game out of 8. They were like 8 or 9 games out. And that was also the year LeBron missed like 30 games and Jimmy Butler decided to destroy the Timberwolves. So, and I say they might have had the 9th best record, but they weren't probably the 9th best team. And people internally knew that. But, it got the fan base all riled up like, oh, we were almost 500. I'm like, it's pretty bad when we were almost 500. Not almost in the playoffs, not almost to the conference finals. We were almost 500. And that got everyone riled up.
But you know what? You mentioned a name, right? DeMarcus Cousins. And usually I've asked Ahmad a good amount of times, is a certain player a first ballot Hall of Famer if a certain player is entering the Hall of Fame. So I want to ask you, Jason, do you think that DeMarcus Cousins is a Hall of Famer?
He's a Hall of Fame talent. But I think these last few, the injury years since 2018 hurt him. I don't know if he's going to have the cumulative numbers now. He really hasn't played as a star since 2018 when he tore his Achilles. And it kills me because that's my, I got on the beat in 2009. He showed up in 2010. It's like we kind of grew up together. And I hate it. It pains me to see what's happened to him with the injuries, because he's not getting hurt, he's racking up all-star games. I mean, what he was doing, people, he was a lot of ways ahead of his time. I remember when he started shooting threes, I'm like, what are you doing? He was like, I got all this stuff in my bag. Coach Cal wouldn't let it out. And oddly enough, the coach he probably clashed the most with was the guy who let it out. It was George Karl. George Karl kind of turned him loose, and then all of a sudden, you see him out there shooting threes, handling the perimeter. He could. There wasn't much. I love watching Jokic play. DeMarcus was doing Jokic type stuff before Jokic.
Talk about it.
He could have been a walking triple double. He would get triple doubles, but it's almost like if it happened in Sacramento, did it really happen? Because I saw him put 56 points on somebody. I watched him just have these monster games, night in and night out. Playing through team turmoil and all. I think what's going to keep him out is the fact that the last basically 4 years, he really hasn't been healthy.
And so, I mean,
I think he's only 31 though. I mean,
that's what he still has time, but I just want to hear your perspective in terms of his time in Sacramento.
Situation where it's going to actually let him play. The last couple of, I think when he tore his ACL, that was big because he would have played for the Lakers. They needed him to play. Mm-hmm. And now he's been in situations like with the Clippers last season. He's a guy, who's getting DNP. And you wouldn't have told me in 2017 that 4 years later, DeMarcus Cousins is a DNP CD.
Yeah. Now I want to ask you, since you've covered the Sacramento Kings for so long, I got to ask you, who are your top 5 Kings players of all time?
That I've covered?
No, that just personally.
Okay.
If you had to ever,
I'll stick with
Sacramento. Ever.
I'll stick with Sac because I don't really, I'm not going to start going into the Kansas City, Rochester, Royals.
Sacramento.
Sacramento Kings. I'm going to do part numerical, part because I know off the top of my head, number 1 is Webb. Number 2 is Mitch Richmond. Then from there, I think I throw DeMarcus in there just in terms of dominant player. I think you got to go Peja. Mm-hmm. And then the other spot is like, I might say Vlade just because he was probably the one in terms of their history. He's the one impactful free agent they've ever landed.
True.
And he did end up becoming he was like a one-time All-Star, I think, in SAC. And he was a big galvanizing force behind those 2000 teams. I mean, people from those teams would all tell you that he wasn't the best player on the team, but he was the leader. He was the cohesive force. He was the guy in the locker room that kept everybody together. He was the leader. So, those would probably be my 5 off the top of my head. I mean, other guys they had, I would say probably weren't around long enough. Like, Artest was there for a minute. They had guys kind of stop through. Rudy Gay was a solid player for him, but he wasn't. The guys I mentioned were all stars.
Yeah.
That probably been my top 5.
I was gonna say you had a lot of OGs in there. I was waiting to hear a De'Aaron, but also one person too I want to shout out to was Bobby Jackson.
Yeah.
Obviously what he did with Summer League from a coaching standpoint. Obviously Ahmad, you asked for the players, but definitely. Shout out to Bobby Jackson, man.
Yeah, I think I did a story last year where I kind of did the top 12 of all time, and Bobby's on there.
It's one person you didn't mention who was one of my favorite players I grew up watching, and when I played college basketball in high school, I kind of tried to model my game after. That was Kevin Martin. This guy was special. This guy was a pure scorer. Special, very simple on the basketball court. He wasn't gonna beat you with do crazy crossovers, but he was just a bucket, can score everywhere on the
kind
court.
of an unorthodox shot, but he can get.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, and I watched him drop 50 against the Warriors, and the best part about that game wasn't him getting 50. The best part, he might have had 48 or 50 at that point. The best part of that game was Rashad McCants waving him off for an ISO.
Oh, that's beautiful. Shout out to Rashad McCants.
Kevin Martin is cooking. Rashad McCants picked the ball and was like, no, I got this one now. I'm like, This man is cooking. What are you doing?
UNC.
So, yeah, that's probably my favorite Kevin Martin story from my time covering him, not because of what Kevin did, because you're sitting there going, this man is on fire. And Rashad McCants was literally like, no, I got this one, Kev. I know you got 50, but my time.
It's about time, Rashad. I'm not mad at all. Not mad.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a funny thing to watch. Because if you see that play, Kevin's kind of like, what?
I mean, when we talk about obviously Kevin Martin, scorer, but also a great shooter. And another great shooter that the Kings have, on their roster, obviously, is Buddy Hield. So the final question that I have for you, Jason, is moving into next season. I talked about De'Aaron, but what would you say the next step is for Buddy Hield?
I mean, at this stage for Buddy, I think career-wise, he kind of is what he is. I don't think he's going to, he's worked on becoming a better ball handler, being a guy in the pick and roll who can now come off the pick and find a guy. Whereas before, kind of the fear with Buddy was if he's dribbling the ball might end up with a teammate. It might end up in the third row. We don't know what's going to happen with the ball. Ideally, you want Buddy just catching the ball and shooting, not having to dribble, not going ISO, catch the ball and shoot. But I think depending on how what they do lineup wise, it's interesting because Buddy hates coming off the bench, and I respect that. I don't think any player should go in through. People will kill players for saying they don't want to come off the bench. If I got a player who tells me I don't want to start, I don't know if I want that guy on my team.
Yeah, that's a little
Like if he says, you know what, I'm cool if you wait to the second quarter to get me in. No, I don't want that guy. So I don't mind Buddy not liking that. But in his time in Sacramento, what the numbers have shown is that Buddy is a much more efficient player of the reserve. For whatever reason, his numbers are way more efficient off the bench. So I wouldn't be shocked if, because you do have another point guard on the team with Davion, if you say you do start De'Aaron and Tyrese, you can bring Buddy in with a facilitator because you don't want Buddy running the show, but you want someone who's dedicated to setting Buddy up. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I mean, Buddy was close to being traded this season, this offseason, didn't happen. So, but the one thing, I still wonder if he'll be on the team, how long. But the one thing about Buddy is Buddy might be one of the, if not the hardest working player I've ever seen in Sacramento. And the one thing I don't worry about with Buddy is when he gets to town, he's going to be ready, he's going to be in shape, and he's going to work. And that's the one thing about him, no matter what, if he's happy, unhappy, Buddy's a tireless worker. So I think no matter what role you put him in, and you just tell him to flat out shoot, he'll be fine. I think I want to say he's 1 or 2 threes away from setting a record for Sacramento all time for made threes. So I was like, that'd be real cold if he got traded before he got the record. That'd be cold.
Hopefully not.
He's this close to catching Peja. So it's like, I think he'll be, I think as long as he's there, he'll be fine. He'll shoot. And if they can continue that up and down style of play, he'll get plenty of shots. Everybody can eat, and then with guys like Davion on the team and having Mo Harkless and Terrence Davis for an entire season, you can cover for Buddy defensively where there might be, that's where the big concern always with Buddy is, just that not effort, but he just not, I think he had a thing last year where he said he was trying harder on defense because people in the media and players kept saying he doesn't defend. I'm like, yeah, I've said you don't defend. So it's no secret, but I think he's aware of it. He'll give his best. It may not always work out, but he's going to try.
That's all I can ask for at the end of the day. But yeah, man, definitely appreciate you, for pulling up to No Pump Fake. Is there any last words you want to say about the Kings or just in general at all?
No, I mean, like I said, it's going to be it's going to be an interesting few weeks before this camp starts. I do think they're poised to be a much tougher team, which to me was the biggest issue they had last season. They got pushed around by people. I mean, teams just came in and took their lunch money from them. No resistance, no force. Just like, okay, hey, I'm going to go ahead and get into the paint. I mean, at one point, Luke Walton basically said, could you at least make a guy dribble more than twice before he goes by you?
Damn. Yeah.
I mean, requests like that. You got to make requests like that.
I mean, and I get when people get frustrated with the coaches, but I was like, there's stuff that I watched them do last year. I know no coach told them to do.
Yeah. That also comes with, like I said, about the Luke Walton situation, about like maybe they just need a older coach that's probably going to hold them more accountable. Because Luke is cool, calm, and collected. He's only like, late 30s, early 40s, suave. Young players, maybe they need somebody that's going to really like get in their ass and be like.
But here's the thing about that too, though. They had that guy in Dave Yeager and they hated him.
Yeah.
Which also leads me back to this. These guys haven't won anything. Why do we care what they want?
That's real.
So I mean, it goes back to the whole organizational type thing. It's like, are we really going to bend over backwards for guys who haven't done anything? And Dave offended enough people in that organization, so I understood why they fired him. I mean, it wasn't just the players. People upstairs didn't like Dave either. So that's why I say at some point, maybe you've got to just shake this roster up. And, maybe these guys just aren't a good mix together. Maybe collectively they're too laid back. Maybe you got to that's why I think Davion's going to be good for them. That's why I think if he's still on the team for a good part, I think Tristan Thompson being in that locker room will be good for them. They need somebody in there to rattle them. I think the last time they had that guy was Iman Shumpert, and they traded him, and they haven't, and it was crazy because Iman, he wasn't young anymore, but he had this thing where then they went in the locker room. If they weren't playing well, Iman let them know they were playing terribly, and he got in them. And so maybe you need a couple of guys just to shake them up, or maybe the fact is you know what, maybe as cool as De'Aaron and Buddy might be, maybe you're better off splitting them up and bringing in a different type of guy, not so much better, just different, to shake up that chemistry. Because, I mean, we'd watch them play and be like, is anybody even mad? I'm like, I was like, you gave up 140. Is anybody mad? And it was, and part of it I get. You can't fake that. You can't have a guy pretend to be that dude. Like, if De'Aaron just started yelling, they'd laugh. Because they'd be like, come on, that ain't you. Harrison Barnes can't become that guy out of nowhere. Buddy tried. Yeah, Buddy tries, but no one's taking Buddy seriously with that. They're like, whatever, they're like, you're messing up too, Buddy, on defense. You can't yell at us about defense. Mm-hmm. So you just might need to get some agitators in there, because I mean, there was times, about Luke being cool. We watched Luke break a clipboard because he was just like, I can't believe you guys are doing this. And they're like, okay, yeah. Just like, it doesn't faze them as a group.
Yeah.
I think you've got to, I would like to see them get some guys in there like a Davion. Like I said, maybe Tristan's that guy. Just get some guys in there who are going to get it. Like, would somebody please get mad? I mean, not for theatrics, but just
be upset that you're losing. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I'm like, for God's sake, this guy has gone to the lane 8 times in a row on you. I watched a game a couple of years ago where D'Angelo Russell, we all know he's left-handed, right? Or he goes left.
Yeah.
They let him go left about 12 times in a row out the pick and roll with Jared Dudley setting the screen for Brooklyn. And they let him.
I knew you were talking about Brooklyn. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and that was a game they were up 25.
Yep.
And literally, they ran the same play. And I'm sitting there going, Jared Dudley setting the screen, D'Angelo's going left. And they just kept doing it. I'm like, just fouling. Do something different. Anything. Let me know you. But then again, it's the same organization. Not all these guys that let Clay get 37 and a quarter.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I'm cussing in the press box like, tackle him, do something. I'm like, at some point, you're just getting embarrassed, and somebody needs to get mad. So I think this season, maybe somebody will be mad. That'll change some things, and maybe we'll get some different results. Because I've talked to some of the people on staff and the organization since they drafted Davion. The message has been the same. My God, we needed someone like him bad. Like, we needed him. We needed, people didn't understand why they drafted him. I understood completely why they drafted him. Yeah. They were all saying, we need that guy so bad. So I don't want to put that on a rookie to change, but I think I wrote the other day, if their defense becomes decent with Davion, he should win Rookie of the Year. I don't care if he averages 0 points, because their defense was that bad. It's
a miracle.
If he pulls off that miracle, he should win Rookie of the Year.
I mean, look, you saw what the team did in the championship game. I know it was just summer league. I'm not going to give it too much credit. I mean, hey, he locks up, and I think that energy gets passed down to the rest of the team.
Yeah, because if you're not doing what he's doing, you look real sick out there.
Exactly, you're going to look crazy.
And before, like last season, there was nobody doing that. So yeah, okay, if Who cares if I ain't defending? He's not defending. And people blamed Buddy and Bagley all the time. I'm like, this is a collective. You can't give up 140 or what they gave up like 120 or 125 7 games in a row. That's a team effort. That ain't just Buddy's fault. That's a team effort. I mean, they gave up 50 back to back. I mean, they let Joker put 50 on him. I think Vucevic put like 48 on him or something crazy.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I mean, they've had, they let Drew Holiday come in and get. I mean, they were playing without I think Middleton and Giannis. So Drew got an easy 30 on him.
Yeah, something light,
Yeah, got his cardio win for the day.
30 is a lot of points for anybody in the league like that.
Yeah, but it's for them. It's the ease of the 30. It's like, I'm like, hello, Vucevic is going to walk into that 3, watch, and they just stand there and watch him do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a collective effort in terrible defense. So I believe they'll be better because they can't be any worse.
Well, I hope you're right. I really do hope you're right, man. I'm rooting for Sacramento, man. But again, appreciate you again. Jason Jones covers the Sacramento Kings for The Athletic, man. Appreciate you for being on No Pump Fakes.
No problem. Anytime, guys.
So I got a cap or no cap for you, Theus. It's about OKC. Cap or no cap, Shai isn't a true franchise player.
I think it's still too early to say.
It's cap or no cap.
But I'm gonna say that's cap.
Okay.
My response is Shai has the ability to be a franchise player. I think if given the opportunity. Obviously, he started his career off, early on with the Clippers, then, transitioned to OKC. But I think the mentorship that he had with CP3 is definitely a good thing, especially moving forward. He's a, very talented basketball player. I know League Fits loves him. And a lot of people, focus on just the fashion and all that stuff. But, I mean, he's good at basketball, especially being in that draft class. Look, I'm excited to see what he can do now that, it really is going to be like a little bit more of his team. And, with Kemba not being there, it is a youth movement down there. So I would say yes. I mean, it's still early. I still have to see a little bit more from him. I think, look, franchise player is, that's high level stuff. Player. But, I think, there's still time for him to prove that he is. What about you?
The reason why I said that, because I love him. I really love his game. I think he's a less athletic version of Penny Hardaway. I think I really like his game. I'm still a little skeptical on his shot. I know people are going to talk about, well, look at the numbers. His shot and his threes is fine, but if you really look at his shot, it's kind of like it's very slow, but he gets it done. It's kind of unorthodox, but I'm still a little skeptical of him being the guy you want to, say give the ball to in a playoff situation. I will say this because we just had Jones come on here, who's covered the Sacramento Kings, and it was a list that came out and basically had him ranked above guys like Russell Westbrook, like top 30 in the NBA. And then I was having this debate with one of my homies. He was talking about that SGA in 2 years is going to be a top 10. He can be a borderline top 10 player in this league. And I see the potential, like, for him, his growth and his game wise. I don't see that. I think that was crazy.
It's crazy. It's so funny to me when people say a guy is top 10, top 5. Because, again, it's easy to say that. But then once you start to think about who the other 10 players are.
He said potentially in 2 years he can be a borderline top 10 player. I think that's – I don't think –
okay, all right. That's very tough. All right, because here's why I say that, right? So the other 6 guys that we named, right, the Zion, the trade, all that, right? That's 6, right?
Thank you.
I didn't say Ja. I didn't say LaMelo. I didn't say Anthony Edwards. And I didn't even say the other 2 draft classes that we might have coming up. So franchise player, I mean, the top 10 player might not be the same thing, but there is talent, and especially if you're saying what you said 2 or 3 years.
Kevin
Durant is still going to be a top 10 player. Giannis, guys that are James Harden, they're still, Anthony Davis,
exactly. And then the reason why I asked this question, cap or no cap, because I feel that I like him a lot, but I think he's starting to get a little bit over kind of hyped in a way, because to me, as great as he is, and I say this again, I love him a lot. I love his game, and it's not his fault, but it's just sometimes like people start looking at like, you know, OKC roster, it's a youth movement down there, like you said. But to me, it's just like if they're really trying to make him their franchise guy, why are they still collecting draft picks? They're not really, you know what I'm saying? You look at the situation of OKC. I don't know if OKC believes he's can be a franchise guy. Because he's like, if you look at franchise guys, you're trying to get talent and players that can play with your franchise guy. You want to acquire talent. You want to draft based on, okay, we got our point guard, we got our shooting guard. Now we need a wing. Now we need a center. Not collecting assets for the future. So that's why I said the whole franchise. Is he a franchise player? That's what I'm gonna say is Cap. I don't believe he's a franchise player for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And it's largely because I don't think OKC believes that.
I mean, you know, OKC just wants to get draft picks. Like that's been, it's very similar to like, you know, the Celtics, you know, a couple years back or whatever. But I mean, that's a good point though. It's like when you feel like you found the cornerstone of your franchise, now you start transitioning to like, all right, let's build around him as opposed to just building for the future. Because that's not always the same thing, right? Like you start to draft around guys that, you know, can fit his playing style, but also produce in a way that they can. But I mean, OKC is pretty tough because that's a team and location where you kind of know they're not really going to go crazy with the free agent signings. So you really have to take advantage of the draft pick. So I think that might be the reason why they feel that way. Because free agency, you know, even though, you know, luck is involved, if ain't too many people, I hate to say it, but going to OKC.
Yeah.
Right? There's certain markets out there where they know, like, yo, our best chance is building through the draft. Our best chance is building through free agency as opposed to swinging for the fences and hoping, you know, that some guy wants to come here. But I think SGA, you know, if he continues to go at the pace that he's going to, I mean, I don't see why not. He's definitely a polished basketball player. You know, I think, put like this. I think it's a situation where you have to get the right guys around him in order for him to be extremely successful. Not all guys are like that. Right? Some guys you could throw them just, hey, they're gonna be good regardless. But I think with SGA, it has to be the right fit and right players around it.
And that's why I say I don't. You said it's not Cap, no Cap. I think it is Cap because I don't think he can be a franchise guy because that's the difference. Like you talked about, like yo, it's certain guys that you gotta really get the right pieces around for them to reach their ultimate, you know, peak, ultimate talent, to be that ultimate guy. It's 6 guys that you mentioned in the top 25 and under. Luka, Jason Tatum, Mitchell, Trae Young, Devin Booker. You knew. You know what I'm saying? You knew
Zion.
those guys. Zion. You knew. That's what's that? 6? That's 6 guys
that's
right
6,
there.
yeah.
So to go back to this, like, can he be is he a franchise caliber player? Can he be a franchise player? I don't believe so because even like my homie was talking about, oh, he's going to be a top 10 player in a couple of, you know, that was just talking. You know, anybody that really like, you know.
Yeah. Everybody got crazy takes like that.
Yeah, everybody got crazy takes. They don't really believe that because like if you look at it, I don't even know if he's a top 10, 25 player and under in the league right now. And we just had Jones on here who covers the Sacramento Kings. We talk about a guy that doesn't get mentioned a lot who is extremely underrated, and that's Darian Fox. People don't even talk about him. And Fox, and to be honest, to me, if you really break things down, T to T, I would take Fox over Ja Morant, and it's most guys. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. I would take. I would take. I would take.
Ready to say.
No, I'm saying I would take Fox over Ja Morant, and I'm saying.
No, I heard you.
There's a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that think that Ja Morant is better than SGA. So it's just like it's so many players that are young that people are taking before him. It's just like it's hard for me to see he's a franchise guy, but I feel like you got a problem with what I just said.
Yeah, no, I do. I have a big problem. I thought you were getting ready to say De'Aaron Fox over Shai. I think those two. That's
of course.
Okay.
I'll take De'Aaron Fox over Shai too.
Kentucky guy, you want to go back for whatever, but Ja, hang on, hang on.
No, you hang on.
Ja's like that, bro.
No, I like Ja. I like Ja, but I don't think he's better than Fox. I don't think
that's a little.
I don't think he's. I don't think he's. I think it's. If you want to lean towards Ja, that's fine. But I don't think it's as you know.
No, I do. I think this is
black and white as you think.
I think it's a guarantee. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's like, yo, absolutely 110%.
What are you basing this off of? What are you basing this off on?
The word
team success,
yeah, right,
because they have because neither has really had playoff success. Like Memphis got in the playoffs this year, but it's just like in Ja in that playing game and what he did against Stephen Curry, that's fine and dandy. But like neither one of them had.
But at least he had something. I mean, I'm not saying he got a lot, but when we talk about the player that you comparing him to, it ain't like
Memphis has had dirt. They've built a solid young team, way better than the Sacramento Kings.
Okay, sure, but let's give Ja some flowers here.
I love Ja. I said I would have drafted Ja number 1 overall, but I'm just saying to sit up and say that. That's what I'm saying. Like you look at Darian Fox. Darian Fox.
Real shit. I think after this episode, I might do a poll: Ja Morant or Darian Fox, and I think it's probably gonna be like minimum 75-25. I might even get a few DMs of like, yo, what the hell is this kind of thing.
What does Ja do better than Darian Fox? Tell me. Break it down. Score.
Bro, all right, no, all right, you know, all right, bet.
Break it down. Break it down.
No.
Because you said this. You said it's a guarantee. Break it down.
Play this.
Break it down. I know we was talking about SGA, but this conversation turned.
See, that's
break it down. Break it down. Because I think Darian Fox is. I think he's better than SGA, and I think it's a toss up between him and Ja. And I don't think that's crazy.
Okay, so how about this? You know, rank those three then. I don't know if you did already. If you did, I apologize. Rank those three.
Rank these three.
SGA, De'Aaron.
I'm going Darian Fox. I'm going Ja Morant, and I'm going SGA.
Okay.
Now you rank them. Now you rank them.
Now your turn.
Yeah, you rank them.
All right, Ja. It gets tough after this. I mean, Ja, Shai, De'Aaron.
Okay.
Ja, Shai, De'Aaron. Yeah. That's my three, y'all. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna do a little poll or something for the folks to kind of let me know what they think, because I low-key think you just disrespect the hell out of Ja Morant. But it's all right.
I'm not disrespecting. He's not gonna do that. I'm not disrespecting. I'm just speaking. No, I'm just speaking the truth, bro. If you break things down, you still didn't break things down. You just start talking about. You was like facilitating, get it. You know.
Well, I mean, if you break trust me. We can have an hour-long conversation about just young point guards in general. We can have that. We can have like full segment.
You just said
Ja, Trey, LaMelo.
You was talking about franchise. We was talking about franchise player in SGA, and
well, yes, but I'm saying usually breakdowns require a length of like a full on back to back. I didn't want to make the episode. You know what I'm saying?
You said 2 things. You said 2 things that I believe that are untrue. I don't think that I love SGA. I don't think he's a franchise guy.
Okay.
Because how can you be a franchise guy if you're not even, to me, a top 10, 25 player under in that group? I don't think he's top. He may be number 10.
Well, I'm gonna say this though. To that point, lucky for him, all those guys are hella talented.
Yeah.
Right. Like all those guys are very, very good. So it's like if you were like that's like saying if you were the 11th best basketball player
that's true.
in
the
world. No. I get what you're saying
but six of those guys are legit guys. These are franchise caliber guys. It's no question. It's a question with SGA. Just like you can even De'Aaron Fox. People say it's a question with him as well. You know what I'm saying? People can say that too as well. So it's not like I'm saying like it's a knack. I'm just saying it's a question. And that's where you can say that's where you can say like, okay, well, it's not really a question with Ja Morant. That's why you can say, well, that's one of the reasons why I can say like Ja is better than De'Aaron Fox.
So you don't think Ja Morant
if you want to,
right? So you don't think based off that you don't think Ja Morant is a franchise?
No, I think Ja Morant is a franchise guy.
Then do you think De'Aaron Fox is?
I think De'Aaron it's crazy because like
you know have to.
you know how I do it because I look at when I look at certain players, it's certain players that can just. It's kind of like Giannis. Giannis is a player where he's not the most skilled player, but he's a guy that can be the number one option in the franchise. He's just that dude. You know what I'm saying? And then it's just like you look at a player like who's more skilled than him. Let's say like an Anthony Davis or Joel Embiid, who are still can be franchise guys, but it's just kind of like people are going to talk about like, do they really want it? You know what I'm saying? It's like that mentality we was talking about with Jones with the Atlantic. He was basically saying like De'Aaron Fox is too nice. You know what I'm saying? It's just like he may be more skilled, and if you break things down than Ja, but Ja is just like he's skilled and Ja just wants it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. That's when the differences come. Like you could be a better player than a guy, but that doesn't mean that like you should be you can be a franchise player over that guy. You know, it's very complex. You know, hoops is very complex. Like it's not as black as white as people try to. You know,
right. No, I hear you. It's more than just talent, right? You know, there's a lot that goes into it. Yeah, it's not just, you know, the encore stuff and all that stuff. It's mental too. I hear you. But I'm still taking Ja Morant. Everything you just said is true. I hear you. I agree. All that. Still taking Ja Morant.
You still taking Ja Morant? You still think SGA is a franchise guy?
That's tough because then, you know, if I say that means I'm thinking so is De'Aaron. But yeah, look. Ah, shit. Yes, you know, I don't pump. Yes.
Okay. See y'all next week.
See y'all next week.
It's your boy, Ahmad K. Smith, also known as AK. Make sure you guys go follow No Pump Fakes wherever you get your podcasts.